Hello, everyone, and welcome for joining us. And welcome to today's seminar, One Campus, Many Voices, Student Life and Resilience During the Iran Conflict. My name is Cheryl Dworkin. I am a former student at the university. I am also a board member on AFHU's Midwest Regional Board and on the Board of Regents, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to today's program. As the Iran war continues to impact daily life across Israel, we know that many members of our American and international friends communities are eager to better understand what this moment means for Hebrew University students. Today's conversation is an opportunity to hear directly from the current firsthand reflections on from the Hebrew University student ambassadors who will share their firsthand reflections on student life, on resilience, and on community during this time. Our student ambassadors are deeply motivated and excited to share their stories with us. Through their voices, we will gain a more personal understanding of how students are navigating campus life, supporting one another, continuing their studies, and finding strength within the Hebrew University community. Some of you may have met some of them as they have traveled to different communities around the world to represent the university and the student body. Today's program will be moderated by Summer Felsen, who is the Hebrew University Student Ambassador Coordinator and who also visited several AFHU regions last year, including Chicago. She will guide the conversation and she will help introduce us to these remarkable students. It's now my pleasure to pass the program to Summer, who will introduce the student ambassadors and guide the conversation. Summer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you everyone for joining such an important discussion today. I have the privilege to introduce today's panelists and student ambassadors representing Hebrew University, who I'm also very proud to be calling my peers. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that we will conclude today's webinar with a Q&A session with all of the student ambassadors, so I urge you to put your questions into the feature. Our first panelist today is Amado, originally from Argentina. Amado immigrated to Israel at the age of 24 after working as a professional French horn player in the city's symphony orchestra. He served 3 years in an elite command unit in the IDF before pursuing a degree in computer science at the Hebrew University. Despite having no previous background in mathematics or computer science, he successfully completed the program while serving more than 280 days of military reserve duty. Amado credits the university's flexibility and support for helping him succeed and hopes to contribute to Israel's rapidly growing technology sector. Next, I would like to introduce Sadine. Sadine is pursuing dual degree in data science and statistics, as well as business administration at the Hebrew University. Alongside her studies, she works as a psychometric exam instructor, where she helps students across all sections of the exam. She's also been actively involved in mentoring intercultural initiatives that bring together students from diverse backgrounds. Passionate about lifelong learning, Sadine continuously seeks new academic and professional challenges. After graduation, she hopes to continue her education while pursuing a meaningful career that enables her to make a lasting, positive impact on individuals and communities. Our next presenter is Eris. Eris completed his bachelor's degree with honors at the Hebrew University before continuing directly into a master's program researching how bacteria interact with their environment. Since October 7th, he has balanced his scientific research with hundreds of days of military reserve service, demonstrating remarkable resilience and a commitment to both his academic work and public service. Looking ahead, Eris plans to pursue a PhD and continue advancing innovative scientific research while making meaningful contributions to his community. Our next panelist is Raad. Raad is a graduate of the Hebrew University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in sociology and anthropology. She's also pursuing graduate studies now in nonprofit organization management at the Hebrew University. Throughout her academic journey, Raad has been involved in educational and community initiatives, including teaching Hebrew, mentoring students, and coordinating projects that support young people in Jerusalem. She aspires to build a career in the nonprofit sector, advancing social change through education and community development. Next, I would like to introduce Carlen. Originally from France, Carlen is pursuing a degree in the law program of law, philosophy, and economics at Hebrew University. After completing an intensive preparatory program at Hebrew University, She began her academic studies while also working as a psychometric tutor to French immigrants. Beyond the classroom, she is actively involved in public diplomacy initiatives, including Hazan, Exodus, Diplo Act, and she also created the French language podcast Israel, which explores Israeli society and politics. Our last speaker on today's panel is Wared. Wared is a senior at the Hebrew University pursuing a dual degree in biology and business administration with a specialization in biotechnology. Alongside his studies, he's the founder and CEO of a stealth stage biotechnology startup, and he's an alumnus of the Boston-based 50/50 Startups Accelerator. Passionate about translating scientific discoveries into life-saving initiatives, Wared hopes to pursue an MD PhD in the United States after graduation. Amado, if you would like to take the floor.
Thank you, Summer, for the introduction. Hello to everyone. I hope you can hear me. So, as Summer said, I did a lot of reserve duty during my service. I actually started my studies 2 days after coming out of 2 months in Gaza in the beginning of the war. So regarding the Iran war, the uncertainty and the experience of war and the stress of it was kind of part of my experience during studies since the beginning. But I think that what was different this time was two things. The first, to experience it not as a reservist or soldier, but as a civilian. You feel much more powerless and there's nothing you can do rather than just going to the shelter when you have to go, and you feel powerless. You're used to be someone who's in the front doing something, and you're just someone like anyone else, just taking cover, and that's it. And the second thing is that university, since the beginning of my studies, was very supportive of my situation, the situation of reservists and other people like partners of reservists, family members. But now the university itself was in a fog of war. We started the semester with exams from previous semester that we couldn't complete because the war started. And we had to do the exams from the last semester in the middle of the new semester. We had to start the semester from our houses, not knowing whether we are going to go to the classroom next week, if the war is going to start, if there's going to be a ceasefire, if the ceasefire is going to hold, if the exam that is planned to happen in 2 weeks is going to happen as planned or not. So now it wasn't only me that was overwhelmed, the whole system of the university was trying to help each person, each different department in each different situation to manage all this chaos. They did an amazing job. I don't know how they succeeded to put the semester together, honestly, but this like certainly hurt us and the experience of studying and learning. You're learning under these conditions of stress and uncertainty, and also my participation in the ambassadors program was hard. I wanted to share more time with these amazing people, but I was called to reserves. Um, but when I try to look at it from a more optimistic kind of way, as I'm used to do, I think that this is an amazingly resilient generation of students that learned how to deal with this volatility and uncertainty, and just you don't know what is going to happen in 2 weeks, but you need to act and perform as if you have some kind of uncertainty, and keep going and focus on what you can do today and what you can plan for tomorrow. And if tomorrow things change, it doesn't break you mentally, you adapt, you change your plans. And I think this is a generation of students that learned how to do this amazingly. And in this world that is very volatile, And we are going through a revolution in AI, in geopolitics, in economy, and the world itself is in such a crisis that I think maybe the resilience we got from this experience might prove maybe more important than the specific knowledge that we missed in the weeks of the war. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amadeo. Next, we have Student Ambassador Sadine.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. As I've been introduced earlier, my name is Sadine Siaj. I'm a student at the Hebrew University, and I'm a student ambassador as well. And another aspect that I'm highly proud of is that I'm an instructor for the psychometric exam that you may not be familiar with. Just like the SATs in the USA, it's an exam for enrolling in the universities and getting into the majors that you're admiring of. So I'm conveying my experience as a student and instructor at the same time. At one moment, I'm a student who is planning her week, studying and putting in the effort to fulfill the deadlines. At the other moment, I'm an instructor teaching my students, guiding my students, and giving them the motivation needed for them to pursue their journey. But the next moment takes away all what was mentioned, as though months of hard work could be interrupted in a matter of seconds. A siren declaring the commencement of the war completely destroys all what was mentioned before. And that feeling wasn't about giving up, it was about realizing how fragile our routines had become. What made this experience particularly difficult was that it wasn't the first time. When the sirens began again, many of us had the same thought: here we go again. Instead of the shock, there was a sense of familiarity, and that was unsettling at its own way. We found ourselves adapting to routines that no one should ever have to consider normal. Checking the location of the nearest shelter, keeping our phones nearby for alerts, wondering whether the next siren would interrupt a lecture, an exam, or a quiet night's sleep. While sleeping itself turned out that it's a privilege to sleep a full night peacefully, was a privilege that we were deprived from for several weeks. Or even worse, would the siren be the last one you hear for one reason or the other? That normalization was perhaps one of the hardest parts. Human beings adapt remarkably well, but in this case, this should never feel ordinary. As life continued, we continuously reminded ourselves not to lose sight of that. The conflict completely changed what success looked like. A successful day would be a productive day, finishing an assignment, preparing for an exam. But during those weeks, it felt completely different. Success was simply getting through the day, giving the motivation to my students as I needed it myself. Checking if my family and friends are safe, finding the motivation to set and even just open the laptop, check my studies and my schedules. But one aspect that is sometimes unfortunately overlooked is that not everyone experiences these emergencies at the same aspects, even at the same region. The Arab communities have fewer protected public shelters, or even none, like my case. So, as Arab student, the reality of the war was a completely different thing for me. It was about thinking of others, my family, my friends, whether they have access to safe and protected places like other people. This was a completely another layer of stress and worry that stayed with me throughout those days. So the sirens literally did nothing but make me feel more helpless. But despite everything and despite all of that, I didn't stop. I continued teaching my students, giving them the motivation that they need when I lost it myself. Even we did lectures on Zoom. I continued representing the Hebrew University as a student ambassador. We had Zoom meetings. We continued to reach out for each other. So this responsibility as a student, an instructor, and a part of a community, a part of a family, all that gave me the purpose and the sense of it where everything around us felt uncertain. And a huge thanks goes to the committee of the Students of Ambassadors and the university's members for offering a hand whenever is needed. And thank you everyone for being here and listening to our experiences and stories.
Thank you so much, Sadine. I now invite Eris to share your story.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to go and talk in front of you, even though I guess you're over there because I see the participants, but we don't see them. So As stated earlier by Summer, I'm trying to go and juggle my active research life at Huji in the Rehoboth campus with military responsibility as an officer in the reserve idea. The Iran war, I met a few weeks after we were discharged from a few months in the Gaza. And that morning, it started with me and my wife arguing with me getting a message from my commander that my division is being sent to the north, and my wife being upset, and a large veil of uncertainty that I'm sure everyone felt at that time. In the end, the orders were changed and they told us to go to a different spot and wait for the orders. In the end, in the Iran war, my division was not called, but dealing with that uncertainty and trying to go and juggle all of the academic responsibilities that I had from my last deployment was a difficult challenge that I had to deal with. And as Amado shared, reservists deal with added tensions and stress of unknown variables when planning academic and civic responsibilities. You never know when the next time will come and how to deal. And as I think the quote goes, a man makes plans and God kind of laughs at you. And in each time I try to go and make plans, something like that goes off. And that left me with my two final courses that I had to go to finish my master's. And in classic Fuji spirit, the professors had the opportunity to go and pity me, to go and send me home and just give me a good grade because I'm a reservist. But they did not do that. During the Iran war, during the missiles and all of that uncertainty, I had a professor who, instead of giving me a quiz online, he made sure that we could meet up in the university to make sure I gave it my best and gave me a full hard test. And I had a different course where I needed to go and do a presentation where between alarms we met online. I think that this encompasses the true spirit where even in the most uncertain times, we don't let our values change. In general, I want to go and bring the point up that how each one and each student feels during this is dependent not just on being in this country and feeling the alarms, but on socioeconomic and geographic states. I live in Jaffa in a building where Jews and Arabs live together. We each have a bomb shelter in our apartment, which allows us added sanity during this insane time. But it's not a situation that each student can deal with, and it is a very difficult situation for everyone involved. And it's sad that not everyone gets the basic opportunity to go and feel safe in their own home. And I want to go and thank the diversity program. I also missed most of it. As I said, we made plans and I had reserve duty for most of the first semester. But I think it really portrayed the thing that's beautiful about Israeli academia in general and in the Huji University specifically, giving an opportunity to go and see the full diversity of the country, be it Palestinians, ultra-Orthodox, and all political opinions meeting together and sharing basic values. And that's my time, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Eris. Our next panelist is Rad.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for introducing me and for having me to this webinar. Okay, basically, my name is Ragad Haman, and I grew up in East Jerusalem. So before I start talking about my experience during the Iran war, I would like to share with you my experience as a Palestinian student who chose to study at the Hebrew University. So coming to the Hebrew University was, in many ways, it was like entering a completely new world. Although I had lived in Jerusalem my entire life, I didn't know any Hebrew when I began my academic journey. So before starting my degree, I completed the foundation year at the Rothberg International School here in the Hebrew University, and it was one of the hardest years of my life. I remember feeling constantly stressed, struggling in sleep, and wondering whether I would ever be able to study in a language I had never spoken before. But that year gave me the foundation I needed. I graduated with honors, and more importantly, I gained the confidence to continue my studies. The university also played a significant role in helping me succeed. My lecturers understood that language should never define a student's potential. They gave me practical advice, encouraged me when I doubted myself, and the university provided accommodations such as an extra time during exams. I always felt that my knowledge was being evaluated rather than my level of Hebrew. That support allowed me to focus on learning instead of constantly worrying about my language barrier. However, language was not the only challenge I have faced. During the war with Iran, like many students, I struggled emotionally. I was writing two seminar papers at the same time, and both required interviews because of the tense atmosphere on campus. It became difficult to approach people and ask them to participate. Like many others, I was also dealing with uncertainty and anxiety, and my mental health affected my ability to work. I reached out to my lecturers and explained my situation honestly, and they gave me extensions. That experience reminded me that behind every assignment is a human being, and that compassion in education matters. As a Palestinian student, another thing I needed was a space where I could simply be myself. I found that through Middle Meets, a dialogue program that brought students together to share their experiences and listen to one another. For me, it became a place where I could express my opinions, speak about my identity, and talk about my experiences without feeling judged. It reminded me that even when people disagree, respectful conversations can still create understanding. So, looking back, my years at the Hebrew University were not defined by how difficult they were. They were defined by the people and the support system that helped me overcome those difficulties. From learning a completely new language to receiving understanding during times of conflict to finding spaces where I felt heard. I learned that education is about much more than earning a degree. It is about resilience, empathy, and finding your place while helping others find theirs. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rad. Next, I would like to introduce Carlen.
Hi everyone. So as Summer said, my name is Caroline. I'm 22 years old. I'm from Paris, and I've been in Israel for 4 years. I study at the Mahpil program, which is 3 degrees, law, economics, and philosophy. And yeah, I arrived in Israel 4 years ago. I didn't know to speak Hebrew. I learned the first year when I arrived in Israel, and then I started to study at the Hebrew U. So I think that my point of view is a European point of view because I'm French, and I think that what was really, really difficult this last war was to maintain concentration and motivation. I live in Israel, so we had a lot of night alerts, and we always like needed to search for shelter. The security situation was really, really hard, so it caused me a lot of anxiety. And when I speak with my French friends, they also, I think, lived like they felt the same way as I felt. It was really, really difficult to focus on a class or prepare an exam when I did not know how the situation will develop in the next hours or days. On the personal level, it was extremely difficult because my father was stuck in France and he was really scared about what's going on. And at the same time, my aunt was stuck in Israel with me. And she's a mother of 7 kids, so all of her family was in France, and she was alone in Israel, and she didn't know how to come back in France. And it was also the first time for her, like being in a country where there's a war and you don't know what's going to happen the next day. So, as a French citizen, I've always lived in France. I've lived in France for 18 years. And this kind of experience of war and of like bombing and like waking up in the night and, being scared is really far away from what I consider being normal. And I think that it was one of the biggest thing that I had like to deal with because like when you're French, you don't know what it's war. You don't know like why you have to wake up like at night and like run to a shelter that's really different from our perspective of what's normal. And Also, I think that what is really difficult as a student is going from a situation of war when you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow to a situation when like you need to come back to a university when they sign the ceasefire, like the day after you're going back to university. And it's really difficult because in your head, like you're stressed, you're with a lot of anxiety, and you have to deal with the exam, the preparation for the exam, the preparation for all the work you have to do. And especially for me as a student, like with 3 degrees, it was really difficult to come back and to be able to switch from like war in my head to like going back to a normal life. And Israeli people are really good to do that. Like they know how to switch really fast. But when you come from a different country, when you're not used with that all the war situation and the stress, it's kind of really difficult. I think that it's really important for me to say that the university helped us a lot because they knew that we were struggling as students and that it was really difficult for us to come back to university and to do the exam that we needed to do on the first semester, like Amado said. And they really helped us. One of the biggest things that they do, it's they let us choose between different dates for the exam. So it was really important for us as students. And yeah, they just knew that it was difficult for us, and we had the opportunity to talk with people that worked in the university to help us because like we were struggling as students. And also, I think that there's a lot of good things studying in Israel, also when there's war, because you learn how to deal with all of these situations and with stress, and you become really resilient, and you learn how to deal with these situations and to adapt yourself, although sometimes it's really stressful and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but you try to be really positive and yeah, I think that I became like stronger with all that because it teached me a lot. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And our last speaker for today is Wared.
Thank you, Summer. Imagine that every 30 seconds, somebody in the world dies from heart disease. It's a borderless crisis, but for me, it's a deeply personal one. The loss of my uncle to this disease was the catalyst that I shift my life trajectory from mentoring young leaders at the Kinneret Innovation Center to dedicating my career to global health solutions. That what led me pursue a dual degree in biology and business at the Hebrew University and understand both the science of healing and the mechanism of scaling solutions. Through my work in the strategic planning department at the Israeli Ministry of Health, I saw firsthand the macro level challenges of our healthcare systems would face. But perhaps my most profound realization came recently in Boston when I had the privilege of participating in a very luxurious program. It's called 50/50 for Startups Accelerator, pitching alongside with both my Palestinian and Israeli entrepreneurs and colleagues. I saw how shared human challenges like saving lives can build bridges that politics often can't. Today, I'm proud to say I'm working for a leading figure. He's called Professor Kobi Nachmias. He's a serial entrepreneur, and I have a lot of things to learn from him. I'm building a startup that uses AI to predict heart diseases, biomarkers, and also from proteins. My goal is not just only to build a successful company, but also to democratize cardiac care and globally to prove that innovation is our strongest tool for regional cooperations and also human betterment. Despite the brutal realities of our recent regional conflict, Our commitment to advancing our education and building a better world never wavered. Navigating that severe instability meant pushing forward even when the logistics of innovation became incredibly daunting, like highlighted by a high stressful multi-leg journey through Egypt and Rome and finally to reach Boston. But that exhausting trip claimed a defining moment, presenting our venture on a global stage and executing a critical pivot towards resilient, also innovation, and guided by deep root of my vision of my uncle, and I share for overcoming systemic barriers. This shift represents our border mission, building globally scalable companies that solve critical medical bottlenecks and deliver life-changing innovation, regardless of the challenges standing in our way. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ward. And again, thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing your stories. Some of them might not be easy to tell, but you guys did a great job. And also would like to mention that all of the weeks of preparation prior to this webinar has also coincided with the exam season that's happening right now. So really thank you to all of you guys for speaking today. Next, I would like to begin the Q&A session. Our first question is from Raymond, and he asked the student reservists how you managed your studies from the field. He says, I can't imagine you had much free time. Was there much studying in groups or mostly on your own?
I'll start. I'm sure it's individual answer, but personally, I felt that I couldn't really study during the reserve duty when I was in the field. I tried to bring a paper one time and sit, but it's truly a different mindset between when you're here or where you're there. So it was mostly by myself reading a paper and being upset that my brain stopped working. But it mostly was during time at home rather than during the actual reserve duty. At least for me. Maybe Amadeo.
The experience, my experience of learning in the field, it depends a lot of where you are deployed. Like once I was deployed to the frontier before Israel started maneuvering in Lebanon, and we were inside of a bunker, and there I felt safe, and we had electric light, and sometimes I could find a place with silence and study. And I did a couple of courses that semester that I studied from there. But specifically this time, I just honestly I couldn't. Some of my friends, like this time we were inside of Lebanon in like very harsh conditions. Some of my friends that I really admire were completely able to learn in the middle of the chaos and noise. And but I'm a person that needs like my space and silence to study. I study computer science, and sometimes you need like to focus a lot on an algorithmic problem to solve it. And I just said, okay, I'm going to focus on the reserves. When I go back to to university, I will do the switch, and that's what I did this time.
Thank you, Eris and Amadeo. Our next question was asked by a couple people, and this applies for all of the student panelists. The question is, do you feel that the trauma of this recent period has impacted any of your decisions about the future, whether that's academic, personal, or professional? So whoever would like to start first.
Do you hear me, Summer? Yeah. I think that all the wars, like I've been here for 4 years, and like 4 years of war almost. And I think that it gave me like more like I want to give to Israel more and to develop like more ways to explain to the world that we're good people, you know, like it gives you the like you really want to help more because you see that every Israeli people do like the like the biggest effort they can to help when there's war, and like you see a lot of help, and people are really like they're really into it. So I think that it gives you like you really want to give more to Israel, and I think that it also gave me like the I felt that I was in the right place. Like like although there's war and you don't feel like safe, you still feel really safe because you're in Israel, and I don't know, I feel that I want more of to stay in Israel and to live in Israel, and that I made the right choice to come to Israel and not to stay in France.
Does anyone else want to answer how the war affected their perceptions about their future academically or professionally?
Yeah, I can answer as well. As a Palestinian student, I have to constantly go across checkpoints. So at the war period, the checkpoints go over different procedures than usual days. There are more closures, things are more uncertain. So you cannot know whether you can cross a border or not at specific times during the war. So my decisions for daily activities, even visiting my grandparents who live across the border or across the checkpoint, was something that is uncertain. And you know, at periods of war, you get the urgent feeling of always being near your beloved ones, always reaching for your families. My grandma, for example, she lost my grandpa recently, like before a couple of years, and the feeling of her being alone at the house isn't something easy at all. So we were always visiting her on daily basis, just to remind her that we're beside her. But in periods like war, it's something that is even more urgent for our presence in her house and being by her side. So at the periods of war, it was almost impossible to reach out for her or even know if you can visit her at specific times or not. So, for example, personally, I decided that I would like to spend the days and stay at her house, even if it's going to affect my work, my studies, and a lot of stuff of my schedules. And even if it's going to put me at risk of getting stuck at a different city than the city that I live in. While at periods of war, you never know when borders are going to open again. So daily life became something that is uncertain, daily trips, daily transportation, things that weren't as a thing that I would think of or consider as an issue. That was for the daily basis, but for things that are for the long run or the long term, we felt that no matter what plan you do, it's going to be uncertain. Even in our normal speeches and conversations between me and my colleagues, and we were planning for a project, we were planning for a meeting to submit something, so it was something that is even in our conversation was highlighted. If the war starts again, they were going to do that on Zoom. If the war, if the ceasefire continues, then we're meeting at the university. It became something normal to put options for your plans, while it shouldn't be something normalized and it shouldn't be part of your schedule. To do multiple schedules, whether there is a ceasefire or not, whether the war is going to just start again or not. So this is something kind of, let's say, stressing the students out because you don't know what you're going to do with an assignment. Leave your future alone and like your career and you're completing your degree. Assignments became something that needs planning. So it became a whole different issue that I think other students in other countries where wars are not something that is so common, they wouldn't even think of or understand. And so many privilege that they have and we had before the war, I think it was something that we didn't take we now we don't take for granted.
Thank you, Sadine. Oh, Ward, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add something with like what Sadine just said. Well, basically, as I mentioned before, worked as a mentor for an innovation hub up in the north, and I mentored a few students about leadership and also about innovation and etc. And recently, the war with Iran just like damaged all the projects. So we had a project for a 1 year total that we're gonna bring young teenagers to build an idea from an idea to a building company and a startup. And the project itself took place in Melia in up the north, alongside with the border with the Lebanon. And when the war started with Iran, and there was a ceasefire afterwards, the war in the north just kept on going. And I couldn't work for a couple of months on the project itself. And as Sadine said, like today we're looking at jobs or at industry. Okay, so you have to look for a job that is necessary for the industry, necessary for the society, because if a war breaks through, and there's a high chance that happening right now, you have to be covered. You have to have a job, even in the war. So look for a career that matches well with war circumstances. So yeah.
Thank you, Warren. And before I ask our next question, I want to remind everyone who's in the audience that you have this wonderful opportunity to ask the student ambassadors questions. So remember to put your questions in the chat. Our next question is for all of the students. As a student ambassador, how has this position changed any attitudes that you might have about peers or fellow students at Hebrew University?
I'll start. I think that I'll try not to be a bit too much kitsch, but I think for me at least, it was also a healing opportunity in like the whole juggling of war and stuff. I had an experience that maybe some of the other students, ambassadors here will remember from one of our meetings where I sat with a Palestinian girl from East Jerusalem, and we had to go and talk about hot topic issues about that we had very deep philosophical different ideas about. And specifically in not just in war, but in general in the internet age where everyone's in their own little bubble, popping that bubble and seeing that the other people on other sides are people at the core, and that we finished our conversation where at least I felt that we had much more in common than we had different. So the diversity ambassador project, at least for me, it was a very grounding experience that allowed me to better get back to civic life and remember that there's more than just what I am feeling, but that we're part of a larger collective.
Would anyone else like to comment on how your experience as a student ambassador has changed any perceptions you might have or relationships with fellow peers?
I would like to as well. I feel that I'm pretty grateful to be part of the student ambassadors because I feel that the university it's a very, let's say, diverse place where you can find people from different majors, different backgrounds, and different cultural beliefs. And I think that being a student ambassador gave me another space that I felt like was needed. It was more of a need rather than a want. Uh, Between your studies and your lectures, there's, let's say, not much of a space for you to be as a human, as a person, as you are. You're a student taking courses and acting in an academic way. But being a student ambassador gave me the opportunity and the privilege to be in a different aspect, not just a student at the Hebrew University, but a person who has beliefs and is welcome to speak and is more than welcome to be heard as well. So I feel that space gave me what I felt was needed for me to fully belong to the university that I chose to study in. And being a student ambassadors part of the student ambassadors gave me the chance to see through different windows, to see many different aspects and perspectives. And it taught me another thing that is super valuable. It doesn't matter if you have different aspects or different beliefs, as long as you're respected and heard and welcomed. And this is completely what was the experience being a student ambassador. We know that it's completely fine not to agree, but it was super necessary to respect everyone and to always know that you're welcomed. And that helped me put the fear a bit aside to speak up and share my experience, because you don't have that much chance outside the university and outside, especially the Student Ambassadors Committee. So I felt that I needed that space, and I'm very grateful that I took the chance and took part of that space and shared my experience. And I'm looking forward to be part of it in the upcoming years and or continue the journey that I started in here. So this is my experience as a student ambassador and how it shifted my perspective in many aspects to a positive one for sure.
Thank you, Sadine, and the university is very lucky to have you as a student ambassador. So another question about this recent conflict in specifics was this conflict occurred right at a time at the end of the semester when classes were coming to an end and exams were coming up. So how did you maintain motivation to continue your studies despite the uncertainty of this time?
I would like to say something. We are still doing the exams from the previous semester, so we didn't finish everything up. But I think, yeah, it built like you just have to. There's no simple way to say it. Like you have to finish. You have to build the resilience, and it isn't easy. It's like it comes with a lot of, crying at nights and a lot of frustrations and a lot of a lot of disappointments and a lot of uncertainty. But you just have to. You have to go through with it, and you have to finish everything together. And yeah, and if not, you miss the train.
Can I add something? Um, I want to mention also that Baruch Hashem, our stories are kind of success stories. I think we kept going because we had no choice than to keep going. But it's worth mentioning that many people were actually mentally broken. I have friends who were broken from the amount of research that they've been doing, and they quit their studies, and that's it.
Thank you, Amadeo. And would anyone else like to add in exactly what motivated you or what were your hardest ways to stay motivated during this time?
I can add something. I think that we all deal with the same problems. So, like you feel more calm and you feel more relaxed when you know that everyone deal with the same problems and with the fact that it's really difficult to come back to school and like to work and to study and to sit for hours and to be stressed because you don't know if you're gonna pass because you're not like into that in your head. But I think that like everyone has the same problems. I think especially like the like my reservist friends that have been in the army like for a lot of months and then they come back and you have to do like you have no choice but to continue and yeah.
I also would like to add something. One of the biggest thing that motivated me to actually keep going and keep up with the courses that I have is that I saw like understanding from the lectures themselves. I saw that they are treating us as like human beings. We are all like surviving. We are all like struggling from the same problems. I just realized how much they decreased from the requirements of the assignments that we had, and how much they gave us extensions. So, and also I saw the mails that they sent us about regarding the mental health, if we need any mental support. So, in my opinion, when I see that lecturers are helping us, they are with us, they are not against us. This just give me motivation, and I just feel that it's worth it to keep up and just keep going. So I'm really and truly, truly grateful for that. That what's happening nowadays is not easy, and seeing people understanding you just motivated you. So yeah, that's based on my experience.
Thank you, Raad. And Eris, if you want to add something.
Just as I feel that during the war, like the research I conduct in my lab and keeping on working and studying for tests, it's kind of my little my little corner of sanity during this time. Uh, I think it was an earlier question of how the trauma affects. I feel that long-term plans and trying to go and imagine how the future will look is very difficult in the fog of war. But day to day to day small successes is really what makes, at least for me, actually the days livable. So be it study for the tests, do an analysis, talk to someone, like the university actually allows for the facilitation of normal life during all of the balagan, all the chaos.
Yeah, thank you. Really, what all of you guys said, it really sums up the student experience really well. And coming from different backgrounds, different areas of study, you guys offer really, really great perspectives as a whole. And especially as student ambassadors, specifically diversity student ambassadors, you guys offer this amazing image of what the university looks like for people who don't live here in Israel, and maybe they've never even visited Hebrew University themselves. So I just have to say, you student ambassadors represent the university really well. And just growing off of what we've had today in this discussion, there's so much more to go in dialogue, in conversation, in Jerusalem, in this country as a whole. But I think that what happens in this diversity unit at Hebrew University and what's happening in our diversity student ambassador meetings, it is one of the most inspiring things. And I get chills just talking about it, the way that we all could come together from different backgrounds and have conversations and build friendships and yeah, share the Hebrew University student experience together. So thank you all again and again during an exam period. So kol hakavod to you all. And I would like to bring this back to Cheryl, who will wrap up the webinar.
Hi again, everybody. I wanted to just thank you all for joining us today, whether you're one of the student ambassadors or one of the people who is in the audience. If you would like to learn more about the university, which is the premier Israeli university, please feel free to visit your respective American Friends office, our website, and you can get all kinds of information there. Thank you again, and have a lovely rest of your day.